Security.
Social Security.
Social Security.
The entire nation needs to have an honest discussion.
Social Security Trust Fund.
Shortfall is large, very large.
What does this mean for your retirement planning?
The only threat to current retirees' benefits is...
There was recently a bipartisan Senate Finance Committee hearing on the future of Social Security. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to share clips from the actual hearing and walk you through the charts presented to Congress, and then explain where things stand today regarding fixing the Social Security funding problem. To say that there is a lot of concern around the Social Security cuts in benefits would be an understatement. Welcome back to the Financial Fast Lane. I'm Lane Martinson. If you've been watching this channel for a while, you know that we discuss Social Security, Roth conversions, taxes, investing, and all things retirement planning. And today we have a special report on what Congress is saying about Social Security reform.
Before I read my opening statement, I want to thank Senator Sanders for his cooperation. I went to him about a month ago and I said I'd like to have this hearing on this very day. And he very quickly said yes, and it was going to be a bipartisan meeting. And I hope that sets the stage for the fact that nothing on this subject of Social Security is going to get done if it doesn't happen in a bipartisan way. So I thank you for your cooperation. Social Security is a part of the social fabric of America.
Let's pause here for just a second. So one thing I appreciated about this hearing was its tone. It wasn't a debate over whether Social Security matters. Everyone in the room already agreed that it does.
Social Security is a part of the social fabric of America. Unfortunately, its trust fund for retirement and survivors' benefits will be exhausted in 6 years. Come 2032, seniors see their benefits cut by as much as 22%. To ensure this cut never happens, the entire nation needs to have an honest discussion about Social Security.
The discussion was about how do we fix and preserve Social Security for today's retirees while strengthening it for future generations. That's the challenge. Different senators, different viewpoints, but one common recognition. This issue deserves serious discussion. And that's why I wanted to walk through this hearing with you today. Not to create anxiety, but to replace uncertainty with understanding. As I watched this hearing, I noticed that several members of the committee referred back to the Social Security reforms of 1983. Not because anyone expects history to repeat itself exactly, but because history often teaches us what's possible. Because this isn't the first time that America has faced a challenge like this. More than 40 years ago, Social Security was facing a serious funding problem. The country was politically divided. Leaders strongly disagreed over what should be done. And yet, somehow, they found a way to come together and preserve Social Security for decades. Understanding where we've been and learning from history can help us to solve problems that we're facing today. Today's crisis is 6 years from now. Back then, in 1983, Social Security was approaching an immediate crisis, and benefits were in danger of being interrupted unless Congress acted.
During my first term in the United States Senate, Social Security was also facing a funding shortfall. Fortunately, several political leaders of the era rose to the occasion. This has included two prominent people, one a Republican, one a Democrat. President Reagan and Democrat Speaker of the House, Tip O'Neill.
The situation demanded leadership. So what did President Reagan and Speaker O'Neill do? Instead of treating the issue as purely political, they created the National Commission on Social Security Reform, and it was chaired by Alan Greenspan. Its job wasn't to score political points. Its job was to find solutions. The Commission's recommendations eventually became a bipartisan package of reforms. Notice I said a package, not one single solution. The legislation included several different changes that worked together. No single reform solved everything, but multiple adjustments together substantially strengthened Social Security and extended its financial life for 5 decades. Complex problems rarely have simple solutions. Lawmakers have resolved the shortfall before. The question is, can they do it again? History doesn't tell us exactly what will happen, but it reminds us that difficult problems can be addressed when leaders are willing to work together. Nobody knows exactly what reforms Congress may eventually adopt, and it's important to not pretend otherwise. There will almost certainly be debate. There will be disagreement. There will be competing proposals. But that's how representative governments work. The one lesson from history seems remarkably clear. The earlier the problems are addressed, the more options remain. Think about the roof on your home. Most homeowners know that the best time to replace a roof is before it starts leaking. It's usually less expensive, you have more choices, and you can make the decision on your own timeline. But often that is not what happens. Many people wait until water is dripping through the ceiling, because that's when the problem becomes impossible to ignore. Public policy sometimes works the same way. The earlier a challenge is addressed, the more options are available. The longer it's delayed, the fewer choices remain. One of the greatest enemies of good planning isn't making the wrong decision. It's believing that there's always more time to make the right one. In other words, the sooner difficult decisions are made, the more options we have. Now, back to the hearing where Senator Grassley shares some Social Security facts.
Here's just a few Social Security facts. Social Security is facing a funding shortfall, largely due to demographics, because far fewer workers are paying into the Social Security relative to benefit recipients than at any time in the program's history.
Okay, I know the wording on that chart is small and may be hard for you to see. So here's what it said. Number 1, funding shortfall is primarily due to demographics. 2.6 workers pay into Social Security per beneficiary today versus 4 to 1 in 1965. The ratio is projected to decline to 1.9 to 1 by 2075. That's the trend. And then number 2, present value of unfunded liabilities is $30 trillion. In comparison, confiscating or taxing 100% of income over $1 million would total only $1.6 trillion. Doesn't even come close to solving the problem. Eliminating all improper Social Security payments for just 5 years would total $51.2 billion. Number 3, inaction of Social Security is not an option. Inaction risks 22% across-the-board benefit reduction in 2032 per Social Security trustees. Here's a quick reminder of the basics of how Social Security works. People who are working today pay payroll taxes. Those payroll taxes help fund benefits for people who are already retired or disabled. For many years, payroll tax revenue, together with interest on the trust funds, was sufficient to pay all scheduled benefits. But over time, the financial picture began to change. Not because the system suddenly stopped working, but because America itself changed. People began living longer, families had fewer children, and the large baby boom generation entered retirement. Those demographic trends gradually placed increasing pressure on the system. I think it's important to point out that the lawmakers are focused on the trend. The demographic trends are at the heart of the problem. And here's another important distinction. Sometimes you'll hear headlines that say, Social Security is going bankrupt. That is not an accurate description. If Congress makes no legislative changes, payroll taxes would continue to provide substantial funding for benefits. The real question is whether future revenue will be sufficient to pay 100% of the benefits currently scheduled under the law. Next, what are the lawmakers' guiding principles for reform?
As in 1983, Republicans and Democrats will need to sit down together to consider a wide range of reform options. It's the only way that we'll find a solution that can clear 60 votes to pass the Senate. To foster productive bipartisan discussions, it would be helpful to agree on a set of common sense reform principles. And I don't presume that these are all of them, but these are principles as far as I'm concerned. First, no benefit reductions for current retirees or those near retirement. Second, reforms must prevent senior poverty as well or better than under current law. And third, reforms must be balanced. There's no path to 60 votes for far-left proposals focused solely on tax hikes. Sooner we get to work, the better.
Again, so here are the words presented on the chart. Social Security principles for reform. No benefit reduction for those in or near retirement. It must prevent senior poverty as good or better than it does today. And must be a balance between revenue and spending reforms. Whenever you hear politicians refer to revenue or revenue increases, that is just another way of saying increasing taxes. You have government tax revenue and government spending. So what happens next? That's really the question everyone wants answered. The disagreement isn't over whether Social Security faces long-term financing challenges. The disagreement is over how to solve them. Several different approaches were discussed. Some proposals would increase revenue by asking higher income Americans to pay Social Security payroll taxes on more of their earnings. For example, Senator Bernie Sanders has introduced the Social Security Expansion Act, which would apply the FICA payroll tax to earnings above $250,000. Other proposals focus more on slowing future benefit growth, gradually increasing the retirement age over many years, or adjusting the benefit formula for higher income retirees. Still others suggest some combination of revenue increases and benefit changes. But one proposal discussed during the hearing stood out because of its similarity to what happened in 1983. They pointed to the Bipartisan Social Security Commission Act that was introduced by Republican Tom Cole and Democrat Tom Suozzi. Rather than prescribing a specific solution, the legislation would create a bipartisan commission tasked with developing recommendations for Congress. The idea is straightforward. Social Security reform affects nearly every American. It's politically difficult, and a bipartisan commission would allow lawmakers from both parties to study the options, negotiate compromises, and present recommendations that Congress could then consider. And that's exactly the same process that led to the landmark reforms of 1983. Back in 1983, Congress didn't rely on one big answer. Instead, the lawmakers adopted a package of reforms. And this is the package that was included. It included payroll tax adjustments, gradual retirement age changes, taxation of some benefits, some coverage changes, as well as additional provisions. Each one addressed part of the challenge. Together, they strengthened Social Security for half a century. Will history repeat itself? No one knows. Whenever a problem is this complex, be skeptical of anyone who says there's one simple solution. Complex problems usually require thoughtful combinations of solutions. And interestingly, that is how holistic retirement planning works. People often ask me, Lane, what is the best age to start Social Security benefits? Or, Lane, what is the best tax strategy for my retirement? My answer is usually the same. You're asking the wrong question. The better question is, how do all of these pieces work together? Because successful retirement planning has never been about finding one perfect answer. It's about coordinating many good decisions. I think Social Security reform will likely require that same kind of thinking. When it comes to Social Security reform, it is going to require compromise. There is no one perfect solution, and each proposal is likely to have many trade-offs to be considered. I'd like to bring the conversation back to you, because regardless of what Congress eventually decides, your retirement doesn't have the luxury of waiting. Your planning begins today. No one knows exactly what the final reforms will look like. My own view is that reform will happen. I believe that it is much more likely than a do-nothing outcome. But I also believe that taxes are likely to be higher in the future as well, which is another compelling reason to get serious about proactive tax planning for your retirement years. Great retirement planning isn't about predicting the future. It's about preparation and flexibility for whatever the future holds. Markets will change, tax laws change, interest rates change, health changes, families change, and someday Social Security rules may change too. If your retirement plan only works under one set of assumptions, there's probably room for improvement. The strongest retirement plans aren't built around certainty, they're built around flexibility. One of the reasons I'm so passionate about holistic retirement income planning is because it really makes a difference. Every financial decision affects another financial decision. Social Security affects taxes. Taxes affects retirement income. Retirement income affects investment decisions. Investment decisions affects estate planning. Healthcare decisions can affect every one of those areas. Nothing exists in isolation. And that's why retirement planning should never be approached one decision at a time. It should be approached as one coordinated strategy with ongoing adjustments over time. Back to the roof that we talked about earlier. Most people don't replace a roof because they enjoy spending the money. They replace it because protecting the home is more important than postponing the decision. Retirement planning often works the same way. The conversations people delay are often around income planning, tax planning, healthcare planning, estate planning. And those are often the very conversations that create the biggest peace of mind once they're fully addressed. Good planning isn't about expecting the worst. It's about being prepared for whatever comes. Now, history has given us perspective. This congressional hearing has given us insight into the challenges our country is facing. In the months and years ahead, Congress will continue debating how to best strengthen Social Security for future generations. I hope those discussions are thoughtful. I hope they're constructive. And I hope they preserve as many options as possible for the American people. But regardless of what Congress ultimately decides, there's one decision that's entirely within your control, and that is whether you begin preparing today. Because the biggest financial mistakes usually aren't caused by bad decisions, they're caused by delayed decisions. If you found this helpful, I hope you'll consider subscribing to the channel. And if you're worried because you're approaching retirement with little or nothing saved, watch this video next, where I give my top 12 recommendations. Or, if you're wondering about the best age to start your Social Security benefits for you, then I recommend this video here. And I look forward to seeing you in the next episode of the Financial Fast Lane.